Early next year, Roland Emmerich has a new film coming out called Moonfall. The trailer has been out for a few weeks. And the thing is, when it comes to Roland Emmerich, he's a very polarizing director because he's loved and hated. He's made some genuinely great movies, like Independence Day, the first one, is a classic. I don't care. It's got issues, but it's a classic. I also really liked his most recent movie, Midway. He's got a few in there that I also enjoyed too. He's also got some pretty bad ones as well that I really wasn't a big fan of. But his whole thing is, he's like this visionary director that tells these disaster movies slash science fiction type of films that are supposed to be very thought-provoking. I mean, he makes movies that he wants to make, so I respect him for that. And believe it or not, the dude's directing style, I mean, his movies are popular, they make money, and they are, without question, interesting. Even if you don't like them, they are interesting. So, his newest movie coming out in February is called Moonfall. On this video, I'm going to give you spoilers, major plot spoilers, exclusive here on World of Geekdom. That's right, here we go again. I'm pretty much becoming another spoiler channel, bro. Like, I'm not quite heavy spoilers. I'm not Paul. Maybe I should call myself, like, medium spoilers, you know. I mean, I used to be a heavy set guy. I'm down to 185 pounds now, but, you know, maybe I should call myself, like, middleweight spoilers. But I got some exclusive spoilers here from the film. It did screen a few times recently, so I'll be giving y'all some stuff that, to my knowledge, is only going to be found here, and we're going to get into it, okay? So, once again, if you do not want to be spoiled, this is not the video for you. I'm going to tell you what my source told me about Moonfall. So the movie opens with a space exploration scene with Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry, the two leads. They're a team together, and they're apparently repairing a space station. And what happens is this bizarre-looking artificial intelligent organism, which we'll talk about more later on in this video, attacks the space station, and this is in the past. This is actually a little bit in the past before the movie actually gets to the present time. And Patrick Wilson gets discharged and blamed for people dying. So the station gets attacked, people die, he gets blamed. Halle Berry knows the truth about what happened, but didn't say anything to protect herself, because they don't know what actually happened about this AI organism. So there's a big cover-up, basically. So John Bradley from Game of Thrones plays this nerdy scientist guy, like sort of like Goldblum from Independence Day, except he has no respect. Even though Goldblum had more respect in that movie, his name's KC. And so he discovers that the moon is off its axis. The moon's appearing closer to the Earth and closer, but nobody takes him seriously. So Patrick Wilson is at the observatory where he does this thing. This is now in the present time, where he talks to kids about being an astronaut, and there he meets KC. KC explains to him what's happening and wants Wilson's character to get a hold of NASA, but he gets booted. But he tells him he got booted, and they won't listen to him because he got booted out of NASA. So little by little, Patrick Wilson starts to believe KC. And he's giving a speech to old people who he's made fun of early in the film. And then we start seeing these natural disaster happens, like flooding and whatnot. Because if you know anything about the moon, you know the moon controls the tide. So if the moon is off its axis, it's going to begin to affect disasters like flooding and the water level and whatnot. So that does have a sense of realism to it. Halle Berry is now the second in command of the NASA Control Center. And her ex-husband is a character, too, who's played by Aime Equator. If I messed up his name, I'm sorry. His name is Doug, and they're in a custody battle over the son, who's also a character in the film. So Patrick Wilson, whose character in the movie is named Brian Harper, is finally convinced by KC that this is true, that there's a problem with the moon. So he goes to find Halle Berry, who goes to her boss, Albert Hutchins, played by Stephen Bogart. And then KC explains that the moon is off the axis and that something moved it and that it's heading towards the Earth. The moon is about to fall into the Earth. And if the moon collides with the Earth, we're talking about the death of billions, right? Game over for the human race, right? So Halle Berry's character, named Joe, rejects him. But Brian insists, and they end up convincing her to do it. But nobody's going into space right now, but they find a shuttle, the Endeavour, in a museum. And they're wanting to use the shuttle that's in the museum, the Endeavour, to hijack it to go up to the moon. This is very Roland Emmerich, where he kind of suspends disbelief a bit. You know, well, kind of raises disbelief in a way, because it's not very realistic this would ever actually happen, or actually they could get away with this. But it's a Roland Emmerich movie. You just have to kind of go with it. I haven't seen the film myself. I'm being told this. I was told the movie's very, very good and a visual spectacle. But everyone's going to have their own opinion. Some people hate these kind of movies. Some people love them. You know, it's up to you. So let me get back to the plot here. So they go to the museum and they literally tow truck the rocket to the spaceport. So they go to the moon at some point in the film. And inside one of the craters is where this AI is at, where this AI has been living. And the AI like jumps out of the crater. So the AI is this like physical microorganism that's able to grow, like a shape-shifting organism. You can actually see it in the trailer. If you pause it at a certain time, you can see this thing kind of come up from the crater. It's there, guys. You can see it. So on the Earth, Patrick Wilson, while that's going on, Patrick Wilson's son is played by Charlie Plummer. His name's Sonny. And Wilson tries to convince him, early in the movie, Wilson tries to convince him that he has potential. So what happens is that Halle Berry's son is homeschooled by a foreign exchange student named Michelle. Michael Pena plays the stepfather to Sonny, and he owns a car dealership. And during the movie, you think he's kind of a dick throughout the film. He's being played up as being that way, but later in the movie, he sacrifices his life to help others. So we're going to get to that here in a minute. So they kind of do a bait and switch on him. So they have their own subplot where they're all together and they're trying to get to a cabin and then to a military base. And the atmosphere is decreasing, so they're wearing masks. And Sonny's sister is running out of breath, so Michael Pena sacrifices himself for Sonny's sister. This is like in this ice portion of the movie. And so what happens is that near the end of the movie, they eventually do get to the base, and they're in a car. At one point, they lose the car, but have to walk it, and that's where the sacrifice happens. So that's like a subplot of the film, not really a main plot. But if you watch Roland Emmerich movies like Independence Day, you saw there's different characters. Like you have the Will Smith character, the Goldblum, you have the hero pilot, the ex-president. They all have like their own plots going on. You know, it's the same kind of structure, you know. So they get back in space, they get through the crater, and they find that in the core of the moon, there's like a facility there. And if you're a fan of the Hollow Moon theory, you're going to love this movie because there's a lot of like conspiracy theory stuff in here, but it gets really whacked out. So we find out there's an alien organism that takes the shape of Sonny to communicate with Patrick Wilson. The organism tells him the backstory, and they tell him that centuries ago there was an advanced humanoid species, and they were highly advanced, and they came up with an AI to help them live better lives, like health and medicine and things like that. But the AI, like we see in Terminator and in The Matrix and even in Dragon Ball, the AI gets dangerous when it gets too smart. Well, not really in Dragon Ball, that was a different thing, but you know what I mean. AI gets very dangerous when it gets too smart. So the AI sees the humanoids as inferior and destroys them. So they end up getting wiped away, and they're from another planet. So it's like a different species of human from an alien civilization. So the moon was never really off its axis. What happened was the AI was awoken, and the AI is controlling the moon. So you realize throughout the movie that when there's any kind of noise or interference, it can detect, the AI can detect sound and motion. So it's kind of like an artificial version of A Quiet Place, if you remember how the aliens worked in that film. The AI does not speak, though. It's just its own, it just thinks and it destroys. It doesn't communicate. At least that's what I was told. So they have this like EMP-like machine, and they figure out how to use the EMP to blow up the crater with the AI in it. So Patrick Wilson decides it's his duty to do it, but KC instead offers himself to do it so he can go out as a hero because he was never respected in his life. And again, it's very similar to Independence Day. He was never respected, and he wants to die a hero's death, but he wants to make sure that Patrick Wilson tells everybody on Earth that KC is the hero. So he wants like a legacy and to be remembered as a hero. That's how he wants to go out. So he dies blowing up the AI, and that's what eventually, you know, that's what saves basically the Earth. They end up going back to Earth. The moon goes back into orbit, and they hint that there might be more organisms out there. And they discuss that, you know, Casey was a hero, and the Earth was damaged, but it could have been a lot worse. And that's pretty much the end of the film. So, once again, typical Roland Emmerich movie, yo. They're all having very similar plots to this. I do like the idea of the AI being hidden on the moon. There's a lot of secrets of the moon, a lot of conspiracy theories about the moon that it wasn't always here. I love looking into that kind of stuff. So this movie does kind of explore some of those, but it does become like a big action movie by the end. It's like a mystery thing for the first couple of acts. By the third act, it's a total action film, which, you know, that's how the movies usually are. So that's it. Those are the Moonfall spoilers. I am going to go see the movie in February because why not? I have the AMC Stubs gimmick and I can go see it. And I will obviously do a review on the film when I see it for myself. And I'll let y'all know if I like it or not. So that's not for a few more months though. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day. And leave a comment about your thoughts on Moonfall. The spoilers that are revealed in this video. And we'll talk soon.